Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention. Good morning, everyone. Please have your seats. The opening forum, the opening session will get underway in just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats slowly so we can get started, and welcome to the opening session of the OECD Forum 2017. This year's forum, of course, is Bridging Divides. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, I want to stress the importance, not just about the debates that will take place on stage here, but also your input, of course. Your input is extremely vital, is extremely important to enrich the debate. How can you get involved? This will pertain not just for the opening session, but throughout the entire day. Namely, for those of you who have been to the OECD Forum many times, you know the little device that we use here called Wisembly. And we are going to use Wisembly or tweet the session's numbers hashtag for any comments and hashtag that you will have throughout the sessions. You will find postcards on your seats. If you haven't done so, please have a look. Familiarize yourself and connect to the OECD hotspot and then to Wisembly. Again, check out the instructions on your seats on how to connect. We are in Amphitheater 1, so please connect to the app.wisembly.com/OECD1. If you do that and you're up and running, this is the device that will help you get engaged throughout the entire day and give us your input with your comments, with your questions, and also the polls that we will be conducting throughout the day. Now, before we get our speakers in, I think it'd be wise to do a little test to see how this whole thing runs for those who might not be familiar with it or are using it for the very first time. So to set the scene for our discussion that will be following now, I'd like to get your opinions with a quick poll. And I'd like you to chime in via the Wisembly app following the instructions that I've just put forth. So again, this is the session 1, so please use the hashtag OECD1 for the Wisembly. And if we are going to look at the poll that we're going to be conducting, and the question is very fittingly for the theme this morning, obviously, is what is the best way to bridge divides? I don't know if we can have the poll up here. If we can we have the poll up here on the slide so that we can familiarize the audience with the app. Right now, this is what you're seeing. So, what is the best way to bridge divides? Please cast your votes. This is a quick poll, a test, if you will, to see for yourself, mostly to see if your Wisembly app is up and running so that you can get involved throughout the sessions, throughout the day. I'll give you a minute. So what is the best way to bridge divides? Sharing more, listening better, being more open, or building trust? Vote at app.wisembly.com or tweet. That is another option. Tweet with hashtag OECD1. I see that people are typing diligently, and let's see, I'm looking at the experts from the tech, if we already have a result or if people are still voting. Again, it's on the Wisembly app that will be used throughout the next 2 days for all of the sessions, and all the moderators who will be up on stage here will be able to see your comments and questions and incorporate them into the discussion. So what is the best way to bridge divides? Do we have, I see people still on their phones trying to get familiar with the app. Do we have a result? Let's see. We do. So, building trust, 42%, being more open, 24%, listening better, 18%, sharing more, 16%. Anyway, the important part of this exercise was mostly to get you started, and based on the outcome, based on the results that I'm seeing here, most of you are up to date now. Most of you have logged on and connected to the OECD hotspot and then subsequently to Assembly. We're a few minutes shy from Her Royal Highness, the Crown Princess Mary of Denmark, and the Secretary General from opening this year's forum, the OECD Forum 2017, with the theme Bridging Divides. Now, for all of you who've been here many times, or even if this is your first time, as you know, the OECD Forum has grown into one of the major conferences around the world. Just throughout the next 2 days, 3,000 participants have gathered here and will gather here to debate the most pressing social and economic challenges of our time. And at the heart of our discussion this year round is what divides us, what brings us together. Now, I don't have to tell you, these are critical times, and I'm sure this will be very much reflected in the debates that we will be having. Many people in Europe, in the United States, all around the world feel left behind. The erosion of trust, undermining the trust of democracy. This will all be at the heart of what the OECD Forum 2017 will stand for, and we'll be discussing it here. You have the program, you can download it obviously on the app. It's a busy program, as you know. As a matter of fact, right after the opening session, we'll be starting with not one but 3 parallel sessions at 10 a.m. And I see that the room is already filling up as we speak. And the OECD Forum 2017 is just about to get underway. We have a splendid opening for you, not just with the Secretary General, but obviously the presence of Her Royal Highness, the Crown Princess Mary of Denmark, who will be addressing this audience shortly. So, you have all been up to date with Assembly. The overall hashtag throughout the next 2 days will be simple enough, will be the OECD Forum. So, we're looking for the sign, and people are still coming in, so within a couple of minutes, we are going to get this opening started. I welcome, of course, want to take this opportunity to welcome also all of those who are joining us via live stream, who cannot be with us here in Paris, but joining us via live stream all around the world to follow most of the sessions, which will be live cast. And to be followed online. Now, still getting the sign that we're a couple of minutes shy from starting the opening forum here, 2017 at the OECD Forum. Let me see a show of hands as who has been to the OECD Forum before? Let's see a show of hands. That would be most of you. For whom is it the very first time? Let's see. All right. Okay. Well, looks that way, at least from up here. We have actually the newcomers, the freshmen, if you will. They are outweighing in numbers at least those who've been here. But that's a lovely thing. That's a good thing. We're infusing new blood and fresh blood every year here. So for those of you who are not here, who haven't been here before, for whom this is the very first time, you will see this is a very intense program, packed and squeezed into 48 hours with many sessions, many parallel sessions, and obviously a lot of networking opportunities. And the opening session always marks the stage and sets the tone for the theme this year, the Bridging Divides. I'm just waiting for the cue. Apparently, we're still waiting up on the opening speakers, who obviously will be the Secretary General Untitled Chapter and Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess Mary of Denmark this morning here at the OECD forum. Now, let me see a show of hands. Who has connected to the OECD hotspot? Who has their Wisembly up and running? Let me see a show of hands. So for those of you who have not done so, or who are just coming in and have missed my instructions, please, this is pertinent not just for the opening session, but most importantly for the moderators who will be taking over, my colleagues, if you will, who will be moderating many of the sessions, because they are obviously prepared with their own questions, but this is supposed to be an interactive format, and because it is an interactive format, your comments and questions will be very much appreciated and will be taken into account and incorporated into the flow of debates and questions that will play out here on stage and throughout the many stages at the OECD Forum this year. Now, the room is almost full. I see there's some commotion in the back, some motion, but we're still not quite ready. Is the sign, and but they are in the building and making their way. That's a relief for me to hear, because I'm running out of material. This was supposed to be a couple of minutes. This is, but you know, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. They are these are experiences that only toughen you as a moderator when for the easy sessions then to come. Now, if I had known, I would have had more materials. You know, some jokes. You know, something about the weather in Paris, how it has shifted. But the bell is a universal sign for it's getting important. I don't know. This is so it's. I don't know if that was by mistake or if that actually serves a purpose. But if it serves a purpose, then I'm relieved, because it means we're just about to get started. Yeah. Wonderful. I have received new material. This is, well, I guess the OECD Forum has a website. That's a wonderful thing. This is groundbreaking. This is groundbreaking stuff. And so, yes, believe it or not, you can go online and don't just follow the debate. You can join it today at oecd-forum.org. Groundbreaking stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I was never more relieved to announce two speakers in my life. So without further ado, please welcome the Secretary General Untitled Chapter and Her Royal Highness, the Crown Princess Mary of Denmark, ladies and gentlemen.
Royal Highness, dear ministers, ambassadors, colleagues, dear guests, welcome to the OECD Forum 2017. Welcome to the OECD Week. I'm opening this forum at a very challenging and demanding moment, when our economic systems are weakened by a dysfunctional contradiction between extraordinary gains for a lucky few and the stagnation of income in average households. A moment when many people in many countries feel left behind and are demanding a better deal. A moment when the divides in our societies question the efficiency of our theories, of our policies, of our governments. When the erosion of public trust and the persistence of economic uncertainty are opening the door to protectionism, isolationism, and exclusive nationalism. Now, we take these challenges as a call to action. It's time to make globalization work for the many. It's time to empower the people by providing them with the necessary skills. It's time to resuscitate social mobility. Time to turn the digital economy into a tool for inclusion and sustainability. Today, as we celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Marshall Plan, we must draw from its vision, its ambition, its sense of mission to build a better world based on collective action. Economic globalization has advanced at lightning speed in the past decades. It's powering global economic growth, facilitating productivity gains, integrating developing countries to trade and to investment flows, lifting millions out of extreme poverty. It has also been a force for the dissemination of information, innovation, science, technology, medicine, art, culture, sports, bringing the world closer in so many remarkable ways. There is, however, a growing perception and, unfortunately, increasing evidence that such benefits of global economic liberalization are being reaped mainly by a privileged minority. That many people, while they are supporting and celebrating globalization, are also worried that the process may possibly be hijacked by the powerful elites. And we must address this concern. Many of the dynamics of globalization are inducing or exacerbating disequilibrium. The fall in labor's share of national income, for example. Local blight, regional disparities, the dominance of leading firms in key sectors, the rise of market distortions, the income concentration, the increasing pressures to shift taxation from wealth and high-income individuals onto labor, or the problem of tax evasion and tax avoidance. These and other challenges have opened dangerous gaps in our societies. And the numbers are pretty stunning. Global wealth is concentrated in a few families, literally. The richest decile hold 89% of the world's wealth. The top 1% account for 50% of global assets. In OECD countries, the average income of the top 10% has increased to almost 10 times that of the bottom 10%. And one would say, so what? You know, is that big or small or? Well, it was 7 times a generation ago. In one generation, the inequality has increased by 40%. Of course, we had the crisis in between. The gap in financial assets is even wider. OECD households in the top wealth quintile have a mean value of financial wealth that is more than 70 times the value of those in the lowest quintile. So, you know, this is about some of the numbers, some of the evidence. But it's clear that we have to rebalance these numbers. We need to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to improve their well-being. We need to empower people and build social elevators, enhancers for shared prosperity. We need to bridge the divides, as this forum is called. We need to achieve what Pope Francis named a cooperative globalization. Now, if we don't make globalization work for all, political pressure to unwind its key features will mount. And it will lead to the protectionist and nationalist policies that we're seeing and the fragility of economic recovery and of this increasingly polarized world at a moment when this situation, the challenge, the context, is demanding exactly the contrary. So we need a coordinated policy response. And that's what we're trying to develop at the OECD. We think such a response needs to be framed in a new narrative around the concept of resilient, sustainable, and inclusive growth. A new policy action focused on the improvement of multidimensional well-being. We need to replace the growth first, distribute later axiom with a more complex, more integrated approach in which the low-income groups are better prepared to profit from globalization, ensuring that they are more closely connected to innovation and to global business opportunities. We need to increase social spending to improve social protection and safety nets in light of the changing work environment disrupted by digital technologies. And I often say when the word disruption is only positive when you're in the context of disruption in meaning of digital, you know, of the markets that have to do with the progress in technology. But there is also a disruptive quality that is not so positive, and that is when technology is threatening the livelihoods or the jobs of many of the low-skilled workers. We need to provide the people with the means to succeed. Remember last year in our Ministerial Council meeting in 2016, we developed the Productivity Inclusiveness Nexus. And we also detonated, after 5 years of preparations, our Inclusive Growth Initiative. We have to use those to ensure universal access to quality education, to healthcare, to develop better activation and skills policies, to reduce the tax burden on labor, to support the small and medium enterprises, to enhance technology diffusion and promote the integration of migrants. We need new approaches to economic challenges. We need NIC. We need the NIC state of mind, the NIC way of life, always questioning whether what we do every day is the best way of doing it, and always asking ourselves whether there's somebody out there who may have a better way. This new approaches to economic challenges is looking at the economy as a complex human system, a fragile system, an unstable system, vulnerable to manipulation, and where the only certainty is that of uncertain outcomes. Economics, political science, sociology, etc., were all based on the fact that if we did something, you would get some outcome that is known. Right now, we know better. We know that we can control and measure and manage the inputs, but that the outcomes are highly uncertain. And we need to adapt our policies to that uncertainty. We need to work more with local communities and governments, supporting innovative, bottom-up development projects and the incorporation of women into the labor market. Not only with higher labor market participation, but also with better paid jobs, with higher responsibilities. And we also need to strengthen the synergies between rural and urban areas, even in the most developed countries among us. In a globalized world, we also need to act at the international level. We need stronger and more effective international standards to combat tax evasion, bribery in international transactions, aggressive lobbying, but also to improve corporate governance, responsible business conduct, competition among transnational corporations. We need to better understand the different components of their global value chains. And we need to improve global governance. The role of international organizations, the role of multilateral cooperation to make for more effective and more inclusive outcomes. That's a transformation that we're promoting at the OECD. Engaging in more horizontal initiatives, boosting our cooperation with emerging and developing economies, increasing our presence and our support in the G20, in the G7, in APEC, in the Pacific Alliance, and in so many others with whom we are sharing our inclusive growth narrative and our best practices. Our governments also need to be more open to public scrutiny, to further consult with their constituents and stakeholders on trade, on investment policies, or when they're negotiating agreements on these issues. Again, I'm talking about bridging divides. Bridging divides. This is why we're here. This is why the OECD was created. This is what we will be doing in this forum and in this Ministerial Council meeting. The program we have ahead is exciting. We will be debating the controversial universal basic income, for example. We'll be talking about the digital world we want, people-centered health, the world and the future of work, exponential disruption, migration integration, women in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, And then we'll have idea factories, discovery labs, and meet the author that will be addressing the post-truth world. They will be discussing artificial intelligence, green citizens, neuroscience, the empathy deficit, the risks of leaving economics to the economists, taxing the rich, and empowering women in indigenous communities. And this is, just a few of the things that are going to be happening and going to be discussed. Oh, dear friends, the failings in our system are structural. They're broad, they're deep. So we need to go broad and we need to go deep to fix them. Royal Highness, ministers, dear friends, ambassadors, the economic system that we built and promoted for decades is leaving behind many people. It's time to fix it. Modern capitalism is breeding inequalities and depleting our natural resources. It's time to fix it. Globalization and its benefits are not accessible to all. It's time to fix it. These are not uncontrollable forces. They are the result of our decisions. They are the result of our policies, of our agreements, of our international standards. They are the product of our conceptions, of our misconceptions, of our ideas. And we are here to improve on those ideas. We are here to inspire the new policies, the new agreements, the new international standards that will turn market economies and globalization into catalysts of inclusive and sustainable growth. This is the power of this forum, the power of the OECD Week. That is your power. That is about your ideas. Because, as Keynes once remarked, the world is ruled by little else. So let's change those ideas. Let's improve this world with better policies for better lives. Let's bridge those divides. Enjoy OECD Week. Thank you. Now I am the Master of Ceremonies, and I would like to announce that we have the privilege of having Her Royal Highness Mary, Crown Princess of Denmark and Countess of Montpezat. Madam, you have the floor.
Good morning. Mr. Secretary General, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Today's world is full of challenges, but as we know, with challenges come opportunities. Today, there are believed to be more than 120 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. These are people affected by conflicts like the ones in Syria or Yemen. They are people suffering from chronic hunger or malnutrition, as we are witnessing in South Sudan. They are people struggling to put their lives back together in the aftermath of natural disasters. There are more than 65 million people that have fled their homes and can expect to live as a refugee for an average today of 17 years. Numbers like these have never been seen before. Over the past decade, humanitarian need has grown at a disturbing rate. It is expected that this growth will continue, driven in part by conflicts, as well as by factors such as climate change, inequality, population growth and displacement, unplanned urbanization, unequal and inadequate access to food, water, health, and energy. We need to find the opportunities in the challenges, take a longer view, and use more of the resources we have at hand. Our answers to these challenges cannot be simply more of the same. We're at the beginning of a new era of development, and a window of opportunity exists to rethink traditional approaches to persistent global challenges. Once again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the opening of OECD Forum 2017. The theme for this year's OECD Forum, in essence, is expressed by the following questions: what divides us and what brings us together? The last year's international developments have clearly shown that divides and inequalities have become more apparent in a number of areas. But let us not forget that there is so much that joins us. The OECD Ministerial Council meeting, which will start tomorrow under Danish chairmanship, will address a lot of these divisions, and ministers will discuss and debate possible solutions and strategies. With the title, Making Globalization Work, Better Lives for All, it is clear that the ambition of this year's Ministerial Council meeting is a big one, and one definitely worth striving for. The last 3 decades of globalization has brought about an increase in trade and foreign direct investment flows. Economic growth is now spreading to parts of the world that have not previously benefited from globalization. Millions of people in the world have been lifted out of poverty and today live with the prospect of a better future for themselves, their children, and their families. Globalization, though, is far from just about money and economic opportunities. During this period of globalization, we have also witnessed how technology has developed, often with an exponential speed, and how it has impacted our daily lives, sometimes profoundly. Some have even called this technological development disruptive because of the all-encompassing effects that changes have had and will continue to have in many sectors, for example, in telecommunications, healthcare, media, and transportation. Technological development, and especially digitalization, have dramatically reduced the cost of communicating. The wide distribution of mobile phones in Africa is a good example. Only 2% of African households have a landline, in contrast to the two-thirds of American households. It seems that the developing world will skip the era of landlines and desktop and computers and move direct to mobile. And as mobile phone networks spread to rural areas, new opportunities arise that affect the lives of people who need help the most. For example, by them gaining access to financial systems, healthcare, and education. Traditional banking is often out of reach for many people in rural areas of developing countries, but mobile is now giving them access to financial systems. Financial inclusion, starting with a humble savings account, enables people to start businesses, invest in education, and save for the future. The increased use of mobile phones has proved to be an outstanding opportunity for improving primary health care in developing countries. It has diminished the distance between doctors and patient, and by mobile messaging, the patient can receive necessary information and updates. Technology has the potential to lift people out of poverty, and it gives rise to new overall optimism and a sense of hope for a lot of people who haven't benefited from globalization. Today, with greater access to information and services, comes a sense of greater choice and opportunities, a sense of belonging to a global community and of a brighter future. The challenges and opportunities of globalization means that today we are more aware of what does and potentially can divide us and bring us together. And I would like to highlight just a few of these challenges that affect people all over the world. Today, we have 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets that provide the blueprint for the world's development agenda that will guide us through to 2030. This is a broad, universal agenda, and one could say this agenda is the most ambitious global vision in history. But it's not only a vision, it is also a huge responsibility for all countries. By adopting the SDGs, the world has made a promise to make the strongest possible effort to reduce poverty, protect the environment, fight inequality, promote peaceful and inclusive societies, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And that's just to name a few of the goals. Implementation of the agenda has been discussed in many international fora, including the OECD. As I understand, the OECD has approved its own SDG action plan and, among other things, assists member states in their implementation of the SDGs. The OECD also follows the financial aspects of SDG implementation and governments' efforts to mobilize sufficient resources for that purpose. The challenge of measuring progress in our implementation efforts is extremely complex and important, as the success of the agenda is dependent on our ability to make it happen, to turn the promise of the agenda into a reality for the women, men, and boys and girls all across the world. Sustainable development for people, planet, and prosperity provides new opportunities for growth. But to truly capitalize on those opportunities, it will require new and innovative partnerships across continents, regions, and countries, and between the public and private sectors. It will require new business models and new ways of thinking. It will require designing new solutions. The global goals will be a driving force for opening new markets and creating a better enabling environment for business, and as such, present a wide spectrum of opportunities for visionary companies. For developing countries to become independent of development aid, it will require increased international trade and investment. It will require the private sector to drive job development and sustainable growth. For example, and I'd like to share an example with you here from a recent trip I made to Bangladesh, where I witnessed some of the changes that are taking place in the textile industry. The Bangladeshi ready-made garment sector's growth has been a key driver of development in the country and employs around 4 million workers, of which is estimated 60% are women. The downside of the growth in this sector was that neither factory owners nor the government paid sufficient attention to working conditions, safety, and labour rights. In 2013, the Rana Plaza tragedy occurred, a tragedy that brought the world's attention to worker safety issues and the human costs of cheap fashion, fast fashion, and the responsibility of the international community. Whilst in Bangladesh, I visited one of the factories producing for international clients and export. And it's important to note here that such factories are often a stark contrast to the factories producing for the local market. I had a tour of the production facilities, childcare, healthcare facilities, and a chance to speak with some of the employees. It appeared that structural, electrical, fire, and working environment safety measures were taken. There existed employee welfare programs. They prioritized sustainability and CSR compliance. And even though tangible improvements in the factories have been made, the progress relating to workers' rights and practices remains a challenge. These are issues such as working hours, holidays, low wages, and the right to organise themselves in unions. Although there is still much progress to be made and the new challenges will arise, growth in the RMG sector has been a key driver of development in the country, and it continues to bring with it new opportunities and new hope for the people of Bangladesh. From a development point of view, my visit confirmed that it is clearly in the best interest of Bangladesh and the international community that the industry develops in a sustainable direction to the benefit of employees, producers, and consumers. And that will require governments, workers' unions, factory owners, international buyers, and other organisations to continue to identify and address the shortcomings of, but also the new opportunities within the industry. Women and girls, as critical drivers of development, have been strongly recognised throughout the Sustainable Development Goals and as crucial to progress across all 17. I strongly believe that gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls will create some of the greatest opportunities of our times. Sustainable growth cannot be achieved if half the country's population is denied equal access to education, health, services and information, economic and political participation. And this is, of course, also true regarding equal opportunities for employment, leadership and decision-making at all levels. Let us stay with the example of Bangladesh. Here, the garment sector has provided employment opportunities to women from rural areas that previously had no opportunity to be part of the formal labour market. This has given the women a chance to be financially independent and have a voice in their family and local community because they now contribute financially. Studies have shown that women working in the sector have better opportunities to support their families, wider choice for family planning, and they invest in their children's health, education, and they postpone marriage of their children. In short, women have become an essential part of the growth and development of the country. Greater gender equality is linked to a higher level of education and better health, higher per capita income, stronger international competitiveness, and more inclusive and rapid economic growth. The business case for promoting gender equality is just as convincing. A growing body of evidence points in many ways that women contribute value to each link of the business value chain, as suppliers, leaders, employees, customers, entrepreneurs, and community members. So when companies improve conditions for women and girls, it also makes good business sense. According to UN Women, an analysis of Fortune 500 companies found that those with the greatest representation of women in management positions delivered a total return to shareholders that was 34% higher than for companies with the lowest representation. And if women had the same access as men to productive assets, agricultural output in 34 developing countries would rise by an estimated 4%. This could reduce the number of undernourished people in those countries by as much as 17%, translating to up to 150 million fewer hungry people. Many companies are at the forefront of promoting women's economic empowerment and ensuring the inclusion of women in the workplace. And this is also how they operate when they are doing business in developing countries. We need to move from businesses having a separate CSR strategy to a more integrated approach, where an increased societal responsibility can also result in growth and increased profit for that business. There is a growing acceptance that it is okay to do well by doing good. These subjects are closely linked to questions of the private sector's role in society in a globalized world. issues that you will be discussing throughout this forum. Gender equality is a basic human right. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also smart economics. It is one of the most important driving forces behind economic growth and the fight against poverty. There is no easy solution. Inequality is characterized by many different and complex factors such as social norms, discriminating laws and insufficient legal protection, unpaid work, and unequal access to the digital universe, economic assets, and property. In order to effect the real change that we desire, I believe we have to have a greater focus on the role of social norms and unconscious bias and the barriers they present. So it's great to see that the forum has included a session on unconscious gender bias, which I'm looking forward to participating in not too shortly, actually. Yeah. Lastly, I would like to briefly touch on another major global challenge amongst the many the world is facing: climate change. Climate change is now affecting every country on every continent. People all over the world are experiencing the significant impacts of climate change: more frequent and more intense storms, flooding, droughts, heat waves, and even extreme temperatures. Snowfalls, I should have said. We see food security and water scarcity problems, and our oceans are full of plastic. People are losing their homes, their land, their livelihoods. Climate change is a multiplier for the global challenges we face. The success of the 2030 Agenda is also dependent on how we combat climate change. It affects us all, no matter who you are or where you live, and that is why international cooperation is absolutely essential. The so-called OECD Week is underway, and globalization is the agenda. Many insightful and influential people will meet to discuss common solutions to the challenges and opportunities that divide us and bring us together in a world more interconnected than ever before. We must see this interconnectivity as a resource that forms part of the solution. Through events like the OECD Forum, as well as the Ministerial Council meeting, we have a solid platform for sharing of knowledge and expertise and for exchanging best practices from our respective countries. May the clarity of vision, the wisdom of experience, the strength of resolve, and the power of being part of a group help you find the path forward. Many new policy options will be presented and existing ones challenged. Better policies for better lives. That is your motto. Let it guide you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again to the Secretary General and Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess Mary of Denmark. Give him another round of applause. Thank you for their for kicking off the opening session. This concludes the opening session of the OECD Forum, ladies and gentlemen. Now at 10, according to the schedule, we're going to have 3 parallel sessions. In this room, we are going to have the panel Bridging Divides, Climate Strategies in a Connecting World in Amphitheater 2, and Pink Collar, Blue Collar in Amphitheater 3. This concludes the opening session of the OECD Forum. Wishing you a productive day. Thank you.